Welcome to 𝗖𝗵𝗺 dear students. This is our second class in immunology. After one the introductory and then we had one more class and now this is the second class. We are going to discuss about the antigens and antibody in this class. So get ready and let us understand the concept very well. Antigen, as the name suggests, antigen means, anti means antibody and gen means generating. So the one which is having the property, so any substance which has the property to evoke the immune response is called as antigen. Alright. So please understand what is immunogenicity means, ability to produce the immune response, and what is antigenic means, that is the ability to react with the end product, that is called as antibody. Now I think you are confused in this, so it's my duty to clear the confusion. I told you that antigen means antibody generating, right? That's a good part, that's the basic understanding you have to take care of. But my dear friends, in literal sense if we see, antigen is capable of generating the immune response, and once it generates the immune response, it is going to generate not the antibodies but the immunoglobulins. Okay. So I am telling you this only, that antigen means antibody generating but not directly. First of all, please understand that antigen is responsible for generating immune response, and the generated immune response is in the form of immunoglobulins. Now, when these immunoglobulins react with the antigen, understand my dear friends, when these immunoglobulins attack or attach with the antigen, then it is called as antigenicity, and that is actually the meaning of word antigen. So antigen means the one which is having the ability to react with the end product, okay, that is the antibody. The end product is actually the antibody, okay. So the one which is reacting the antigen, showing the antigenicity, is the antibody, the end product, whereas the ability to produce the immune response is called as immunogenicity, and producing the immune response means producing the immunoglobulins and not producing the antibody, because when immunoglobulins are going to react with the antigen, then it will be called as antibody. In fact, this we will discuss further also. Okay. Coming on to what is hapten. So remember, hapten means that is the incomplete antigen. It requires some carrier to be immunogenic. Okay. So hapten means what? Hapten means, okay, if I just write it here, for example, you have got antigen. So what is antigen? Antigen is equal to hapten plus a carrier. Okay. So are you getting it? Antigen is the hapten with the carrier. That means hapten per se is the incomplete antigen. That means it requires some carrier to be immunogenic to become the antigen. Alright. So coming on to the next concept, what do you mean by the structure of antigen? So please remember, the structure of antigen, be it anything, the most important thing in structure of antigen is epitope, which is the site of antibody attachment. Now for example, this complete is an antigen, but these shaded ones are called as epitope, where the antibody is going to get attached. Coming on to the next important part, what is the order of antigenicity? So please remember, 𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗵 lives in New York. That's the mnemonic which you have to remember. 𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗵 lives in New York. So this is the mnemonic to remember: protein, carbohydrates, lipid, and again comes the nucleic acids. Okay. So proteins are most antigenic and nucleic acids are least antigenic. This is again a previous year MCQ question, so you have to retain it. Whereas my dear friends, remember, latex as well as bentonite, these both are inert substances. That means these are inert, means they have got no immunogenicity. Okay, so they are not immunogenic. Then why these are important? Because in order to perform the antigen antibody reactions, what we are using is the either the latex media or we are going to use the bentonite media. The latex and bentonite media are used for performing the antigen antibody reaction because they themselves are inert, they themselves can't produce any antigenic response, right? That's why we use these materials for performing the antigen antibody reaction. Coming on to some special types of antigen, first of all is the heterophile antigen. So hetero means what? Hetero means different. Hetero means different. So same type of antigen, please understand, same type of antigen which is expressed in different species and different genera is called as heterophile antigen. Okay, so let's understand what does it mean actually. So if you know about 𝗲𝗵𝗵 reaction, 𝗲𝗵𝗵 reaction means that the antibody against rickettsia, 𝗲𝗵𝗵 reaction says that antibody against rickettsia is going to cross react with the Proteus. Now my dear friends, rickettsia, Proteus, both of them are different genera, but the antibody against the rickettsia is going to cross react with the Proteus. That means the antigen, same antigen, because the antibody, so see what happens is actually, so there is an antigen which is going to perform the antibody, and once the antibody is formed, it is against rickettsia. Now the same antibody is reactive against the Proteus also. So can you understand, this was this antigen only which expressed in different species in different genera. That means it expressed in rickettsia, it expressed in Proteus, alright. So these are both are different genera, but the same antibodies were reactive. That means the same antigen expressed itself, alright, same antigen. So one antigen expressing in two different genera, alright, and same and performing the antibodies which can cross react with each other is called as what? It is called as heterophile antigen. Similarly, the VDRL test. So what happens in VDRL? The antibody against 𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗵 can cross react with the beef cardiolipin. So beef is altogether a different genera, 𝗵𝗵 is a different genera. So this is the way to remember. Anyways, for 𝗲𝗵𝗵, because 𝗲𝗵𝗵 is very important, you should have a mnemonic, that is PARV, my own name. P for Proteus, A for the antibody, R for rickettsia, V for 𝗲𝗵𝗵. Alright, clear? Coming on to one more, that is Paul-Bunner test. What does Paul-Bunner test means? That the antibody against Epstein-Barr virus cross reacts with the sheep RBC. Alright, so antibody against the Epstein-Barr virus is going to cross react with the sheep RBC. Coming on to one more concept, that what is the meaning of super antigen. So remember, the antigens that directly attach to CD4 T cells without processing are called as super antigen, and they cause massive T cell activation. For example, Staphylococcus enterotoxin. So what does Staphylococcus enterotoxin does? So Staphylococcus enterotoxin is going to directly attach to CD4 T cells without getting processed. That's why they are known to cause massive T cell activation. Alright, massive T cell activation is going to occur. So because it is massive T cell activation, it is called as super antigen. So without processing means, see, understand, so whenever an antigen, so normally whenever an antigen comes, it is taken care by MHC, major histocompatibility, and then further it is going to be taken by the, the MHCs are called as APCs. So what does APC? APC is called as antigen presenting cell. Antigen presenting cell. So normally this is how it happens. For example, let me be very clear to you. First, this antigen is what? Antigen is the enemy. So first of all, what is going to happen? The local police, the MHC, alright, is going to take this antigen to the Supreme Court, right? So this is the way which happens normally, that the antigen will be taken by the MHC cells, okay, MHC cells, and please understand MHC is called as antigen presenting cell, and further they are going to get to the T cells or the B cells. But for example, if an antigen is directly going to CD4, this is going to cause massive T cell activation. For example, somebody is directly going, the the enemy itself is going to surrender to Supreme Court, so Supreme Court is going to take a massive action against it, right? So this is how super antigen works, and simple way to remember is super antigen starting with the S, and S is starting with the staphylococcal enterotoxin as well. Coming on to hapten, my dear friends, so please remember hapten is an incomplete antigen. I told you it cannot generate immune response, requires a carrier protein. But yeah, what was left is the biggest thing. That's an example. That means, for example, penicillin. So remember, penicillin is important because penicillin is going to act as a hapten that binds to albumin and becomes immunogenic and can cause allergy. So have you ever noticed that many patients, when given the injection penicillin, are going to cause allergy? So how it is going to happen? So penicillin in nutshell is not antigenic, it's just a hapten, okay? But once the penicillin is combined with albumin, it turns out to be immunogenic and responsible for causing allergy, okay? Alright, so what are the substances which enhances the immune response? Alright, so the substances which are going to enhance the immune response are many. For example, we have got Freund's adjuvant, that is like water and oil, or water and oil plus Mycobacterium bovis. Okay? If Mycobacterium bovis is added, this becomes the complete Freund's adjuvant. If it is not added, it is incomplete Freund's adjuvant. And what other things like aluminium hydroxide and phosphate, these are also added to increase the antigenic response, right? So fruits, I think it's easy for you to remember. Fruits have got water oil plus Mycobacterium bovis and its alum. So what happens is, what they can do, they can increase the co-stimulatory molecules. I mean, the molecules which have got the antigenic property, they are going to increase their number. They are going to stimulate the APC, and they have got depot effect. What does that mean? That means slow release of antigen. That means antigen is not going to get released easily. That's why antigen is there in the body and it's going to create a lot of destruction. Okay. Coming on to antibodies, and these antibodies are maybe sometimes called as immunoglobulins. So understand, the antibodies are the glycoproteins produced by B cells or the plasma cells. Very, very, very important. Anti is okay, but B is important. Antibody means produced by the B cell. Okay. So A for anti, B for B cell, and coming to C which look like G. So G means glycoprotein. So remember, these are the glycoproteins which are caused by the B cells or the plasma cells in response to the antigen. Alright, then these are called as immunoglobulins. But when immunoglobulins react with the antigen, then it is called as antibody. We have just now discussed. Okay. Now, if you look about the structure of the antigen, remember antigen is nothing but a monomer. It is a monomer which is composed of these. So the structure is like this. So the structure of the antibody is like this. It is composed of 2 heavy chains and 2 light chains, my dear. So see here, these are actually the heavy chains, and these are the light chains which are going to be there. They are linked by the disulfide bonds. Okay, so here they are linked by the I'll try to show you. Yeah, some disulfide bonds are going to be there. They are linked by the disulfide bonds. Okay, so coming on to what is asked, so there are 2 regions. One is the FAB. FAB means antigen binding fragment. Okay, so antigen binding fragment is the variable region that is responsible for binding to antigen. So if I just expand this diagram a little for, okay, yes. So if you see here, this region in particularly is the antigen binding site. Okay, in particular, this site is the antigen binding site. So because these are antigen binding site, this is FV, that's called as F variable, whereas the other part is called as FC, and C is going to be the constant. Okay, that's going to be the constant one. All right. So see here, simple things. FAB means antigen binding, variable region, whereas you have got FC, that's crystallizable fragment, that's a constant region that is responsible for mediating the effector function. That means once the antigen is going to come, once the antigen is going to bind here, this FC portion is going to activate the different responses, like complement system is going to get activated, and once the complement system is activated, the opsonization, the phagocytosis, these processes are going to begin. Don't worry if you don't know about these things, we are going to discuss further in detail, but as of now you just remember that FC is the one which is responsible. So, C and K are very similar. So, FC is the one which is responsible for killing of bacteria or for that matter any antigen. Now, I hope that from your basic classes you are aware that there are 5 classes of immunoglobulins, that is called as GAMDE. Okay, alright. So, or if you are not able to understand Hindi, so you can remember just like GAME, game, and the D has been inserted there. Okay. So, starting with the IgG, remember IgG is G for, just to make you remember, G for global. That means it is present in the highest amount, it is the most abundant one. So, G for global means it is highest amount. Okay. Please remember, you all are studying because you want to get a good PG seat. So, P for they can cross the placenta. So, remember IgG is able to cross the placenta. So, it is responsible for providing the neonatal immunity. Whereas, please understand, O and P go together, right, M and OP. So, O and P go together. So, one thing which you have to remember is that it is responsible for opsonization, and G and C look very similar. So, it is responsible for complement activation also. So, can you see it is responsible for opsonization, complement activation, both of them. And one more important thing is that IgG is responsible to generate the secondary immune response. As of now, just remember that IgG is responsible for secondary immune response. Okay. So, some people are also the GSs of your student council, right, general secretaries. So, GS means S for secondary immune response. So, you have to remember very simple things, that PG, first of all remember G is global, second you have to remember PG, now O is close to P, third thing that G and C look very similar, fourth thing you have the GSs of your student councils. So, these are the 4 things you have to remember. Coming on to IgA, remember A is very important. A is going to aggravate the secretions, okay, aggravate the secretions, okay. One thing is this, or otherwise you can remember like A is equal to adeno, and adeno means secretions, okay. Just to remember, that's nothing but just a mnemonic, my dear friend, to remember, alright. Yes. So, can you see that it is found in secretions like saliva, tears, milk, respiratory, GIT, anything, okay. Now, A is A, then the near to A is going to be B, B is equal to bi is equal to di is equal to dimer. So, IgA is going to, yes, IgA is something that exists like this, okay. IgA is something that is going to exist like this. So, remember it is dimer in secretions, secretory IgA which is going to be there, and it is going to provide the mucosal immunity. It is going to provide what? It is going to provide the mucosal immunity, okay. Now, one thing before we proceed further, I told you that GAMDE, these are the immunoglobulins, my dear friend. These are the immunoglobulins, right? And if you remove D out of it, GAME are the antibodies, okay. So, please remember that IgD never becomes antibody D. This is something that does not happen, okay. So, this is an important MCQ point, you have to keep it in mind, right. So, revising IgA, I told you A means adeno, means secretions, right. So, it is found in secretions, responsible for providing the mucosal immunity, for example, the gut immunity, right. For example, which one? Gut immunity. And I have told you that this is in the form of dimer in secretions. whenever secretions are going to come, it is going to come in dimer form. But one thing I would like to tell you, the A one is the neonatal one also. So it is found in the neonate also, but it is going to found alone in the neonate. So if you write alone, A for IgA, N for neonate, so it is found to be alone in the neonate like this. There is no dimer which is going to be there in this, right? Okay, and how it is going to be there? It is found in the colostrum. Okay, so found in the colostrum as the neonate also. Okay, if you focus on this structure, what is this? This is called as J chain. This is called as what? J chain. So remember that A antibody or A immunoglobulin is associated with the J chain as well, right? Alright children, actually we have discussed a lot about the IgG, but I just want you to understand some more concepts related to IgG. So these are the three things which I want you to understand. The T-half, the precipitation and types. So it has got maximum T-half, right? IgG has got a maximum T-half, alright. Second, it is involved in the precipitation reaction. We will discuss the precipitation reaction, but I want you to remember precipitation reaction. And then IgG has got different types, G1, G2, G3 and G4. So there are basically 4 types, and remember 1 is the one. 1 means it is the winner. Why it is the winner? Because it is present in highest amount. Okay, it is present in what? It is present in the highest amount. 2, TWO2. Okay, 2 means they are not going to go. 2 has no transfer. No transfer means they can't cross the placenta. So every G1, every G can cause the placenta, but G2 can't cross the placenta. G3. Now what is the third letter of alphabets? This is C. So C means what? Complement activation. And which pathway? Classical pathway. As of now, just remember this, that it is responsible for activating the classical pathway, and 4 is activating the alternate pathway of the complement system. So they are actually the pathways of complement system. Okay, I'll write it here. The complement system has got 3 pathways actually. The 2 of them are alternate pathway and the classical pathway. So G4 is responsible for alternate pathway and G3 is responsible for classical pathway. This was the missing information in IgG. I hope that you will add it. Coming on to IgM, the very first important thing which you have to understand is that M means millennial. M means what? M means millennial. Millennial means that it is having the highest molecular weight. So the molecular weight is maximum when it comes to IgM, and it is a pentamer. Okay, so it is a pentamer. So it is obviously, because it's a pentamer, it is going to be connected by the J chain. So if I just try to show you how it is, this is how it is. Yeah, so this is how is it is, and it is connected by a chain which is called as J chain. All right. So these are also responsible for complement activation, and it also does not crosses the placenta. Right. Now, as I told you that it is excellent at complement activation, it is responsible for causing the activation of classical pathway. All right, classical pathway of complement activation, and it is the one which is involved in agglutination reaction. Okay, it is involved in the agglutination reaction. So remember MA, that means MIgM is involved in what? Agglutination, and because it is involved in A, so A is actually the first also. So A is actually the first also, first alphabet, no? So remember, IgM is the first antibody to come to the, to come to the site of infection. Okay, to come to site of infection. Okay, and it is the first antibody which is even produced by fetus. The first antibody is going to be IgM. Okay, because it is the first antibody to come to the site of infection. That is why IgM is raised in all the acute infections, whereas IgG is something that is raised in the chronic infection. That's why if you want to see, for example, hepatitis B, if it is acute or chronic, then you have to check for which one. If it is IgM, it is going to be acute. If it is IgG, it is going to be chronically, which is activated. Coming on to IgE, my dear friends, I have told you that IgE is the lowest concentration in the serum. It has got the lowest concentration in the serum, as well as the T-half is also lowest of IgE. IgE normally is bound to the mast cell and the basophils, but in type 1 hypersensitivity, where there is allergy and anaphylaxis, it is there, it is going to be increased, and it is going to cause what? It is going to cause the allergic reaction. Alright. For example, if you have like histamine release, okay. So, histamine release in the allergy is generally coupled by IgE response as well. It is very effective against the helminths. The second letter of helminths is E, so IgE is important against the helminths. Now, remember helminths, you can say, or you can say against the all parasites, like, so parasite, last word is E, so this thing you can remember. And regarding IgE, just one more point I would like you to remember is that this is 𝗏𝗵𝗏. Alright, this is 𝗏𝗏𝗏. So, the last letter is E. So, remember IgE, that means these are 𝗏𝗏𝗏. Coming on to IgD. So, remember IgD is present in the trace amounts in the plasma. They are going to function as the B cell receptor and nothing more than that. Alright. So, this is it about all the antigen, all the antibody, and we are end of today's class. Thank you so much for watching.